We're at the very bottom of Chaf Beis Amud Beis, 3 lines up from the bottom. I don't have the article in front of me. Taner Rabbanan, Shnaim Shomrim Niskacho, Shnaim Omrim Lo Niskacho, Harezu Lo Tinase. If two witnesses come and said that she has accepted, a ring from someone, and two said that she wasn't, Harezu Lo Tinase, meaning it has to be a case where they were at the same place at the same time, and two said we saw her give her the ring and say Hariyam Gurechesli, and two said we were there, we didn't see any of that. If it was just two people saying she's not married, how would they know? Harezu Lo Tinase, she's not allowed to get married. But if she did get married to a different person, meaning two witnesses are saying she married Reuven, and two witnesses we were there, we didn't see Reuven give her anything, and then she took kedushin from God, from a different person. So she shouldn't get married to someone else because she might be married to Reuven. But if she got married to God without having any type of get from Reuven, we say she doesn't have to get divorced. She doesn't have to leave. Then a second case, Shnaim Omrim Nisgarsha, Shnaim Omrim Lo Nisgarsha, Harezu Lo Tinase. If two said she got divorced and two witnesses said she didn't get divorced, meaning we saw her husband give her a get on this day, and the other witnesses say we were there then and we didn't see any get, Harezu Lo Tinase, she can't get married. Vimnises Teitze, and if she did get married, she has to leave her husband because we're worried that maybe she's still married to the first husband. So now we're on Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. Maishna Reishna.
She needs to leave
the second husband, the current husband, right? Yeah.
The current husband is not agreed.
If he's not agreed, doesn't matter because if she was,
he doesn't let you go.
It doesn't matter because if she was still married to the first husband, she's never been married to him. If she was still married to the first husband, he could have made her a big wedding, a destination wedding, and given her a 5-carat ring. It doesn't matter if she's married to someone else. She can't. If she's already married, she can't accept his marriage.
So if there's no gift, she's still married.
Okay, so that's a different question. So sometimes in Yuvamos we say Teito Mizu Mizu. Sometimes it says she can't be married to the second husband anymore, and she's not allowed to be married to the first husband anymore. That's a case called Teite Mizu Mizu. So in the argument doesn't say that. It's a good question, but we say Teite, she has to. So when we say she has to leave the second husband, does she need a get? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
When was it?
Okay, so there's two. So that's Rabbeinu Gershom about 1,000 years ago. But according to, it was in time of the Rishonim, right? But according to the Targum in Megillus Rus, when Boaz said, "There's a redeemer closer than me, Ploni Almoni," so according to Targum, he said, "I can't marry her, Penashke said, because my wife won't let me." Basically, is what the Targum says. That's what it says in the pasuk. The Targum says something a little bit expanded. That's what the pasuk says. So Targum says, "Leis ana yachal mifrokli." I can't redeem al de isle itza because I have a wife. Leis li reshud lemisav achranisa allaha. I don't have permission to marry another one. Dilma tehe lamatu bevesi. Maybe there's going to be a problem in my house. And then he says, then I'm gonna destroy what I've built up. So according to the Targum, and Ravarn actually it's in Lachi the hard to find it, but it's clear that that's what the Targum means, is that even when men were allowed to marry more than one wife, that doesn't mean they could willy-nilly. If the earlier wife or earlier wives were not okay with it, he couldn't marry an additional wife, and that's what the Targum means there in Megillus Rus. So according to that, what Rabbeinu Gershom decreed was, even in a case where the wife would be willing to let you marry a second wife, you're not allowed to. I mean, a different takana that he.
Because all the wording here.
No, but this is a different game. Here, but everyone agrees a woman can't be married to two husbands. And here the problem is that if she's still married to the first husband, she can't be married to two men at the same time. That's the issue in this Gemara. So the Gemara says at the very top of Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, Ma'ishna Reisha, Ma'ishna Seifa. What's the difference between the first case where two people are saying she has now accepted a betrothal from someone that she's allowed to stay married, and how come the case of whether or not she had a get, she's not allowed to stay married? What's the difference? So Amar Abaye, Tirgma Ba'edacha. Abaye says, explain it that there's not two witnesses for each of these things, but only one witness. So this is what the brisa means. Eidacha nomer niskacha, ve'eidacha nomer lo niskacha. If one witness says she accepted kiddushin from someone and one aide said that she didn't, travayu b'fnuya kamisade, they're both testifying about a single woman. And the one who said that she has accepted kiddushin from someone, he's one witness, and one witness is not believed against two. Meaning both witnesses agree that she was previously unmarried before that date. One witness says on that date her status changed. The other witness says her status was unchanged and she's still unmarried. So we have two witnesses saying that she's unmarried, so one witness can't say that she's married. Now, in regard to that, even if there was no, even if one witness would come say that they got married, they wouldn't be believed. If the husband and the wife would go before Beit and say, we got married, Beis Din wouldn't believe them either. We need two witnesses anyway, but the Gemara mentions it this way for some reason. Say for the second case about divorced, meaning she was known as so one witness says she received a get from her husband, and one said she didn't. They're both starting out from a case that this woman was married. So we have two witnesses saying that she was married. And the one who's saying that there was a get is one witness. And we don't believe one witness as opposed to two. So therefore, according to the first case, the default is that she's unmarried. So therefore, if she remarried someone else, she's allowed to stay married. And the second case, whenever both agreed that she was married, but one is saying she had gotten divorced, the assumption is she's still married. Therefore, she can't marry someone else. So therefore, if she suddenly is going around saying, look at this ring that Chaim Pipik gave me, we say, oh, you're married to someone else. Chaim Pipik, people give you whatever they want. You're not available to be married because you're already married to your first husband. So that's why the difference is between the two cases. Rav Ashi gives a different answer. Liolam treu trei ve'epach. Really, it's talking about two witnesses saying she got married, and two witnesses saying she wasn't married, and two witnesses saying she got divorced, two witnesses saying she wasn't divorced. Ve'epach, but reverse the cases. Meaning, in the first case of she got married, say that she would have to leave the second husband, and in the case of divorce, if she remarried, she would be allowed to stay with the second husband. So what does this mean? Two say we saw that she got married, and two say we didn't see that she got married. We were there, we should have seen it, but we didn't see that she got married. She's not allowed to get married. And if she did get married, she must leave the second husband. Pshita lo rinua ein oraya. So of course that's the case. Two witnesses say we didn't see anything. That's not that's not testimony. Testimony is to say we saw something. So to say we didn't see the kedushin doesn't mean anything. Okay, you weren't in the right place at the right time. How do you know? So lo tzricha, but that's not a question because the dairi b'chatzar achad. These are a case where these people live in the same courtyard, meaning they live in the same building or buildings across from each other that share a common courtyard. So people see who's coming and going. Mahu desema imisa diniskacha kala yislei lamilsa. I would have thought that if she was really got married, there would be some type of hubbub. There would be, people would know that she got married. I mean, literally, it says, a kol means there's a sound, not a sound like you heard Od Yeshama, but it means people are saying, oh, so and so is got married to so and so. Kamash Malan the Abdi Inish the Mikachibitzina. No, but it does end up that sometimes people get married quietly. Rashi says, wrong case. Seifa in the second case, which in our case said that she's allowed, she must leave the husband. Abaye is saying, Rav Ashi is saying in that case, She doesn't have to leave the second husband. Shnaim omrim reinu shenisgarsha, ushnaim omrim lo reinu shenisgarsha. The second case is two people said we saw that she got divorced, and two said we didn't see that she got divorced. She shouldn't get married to someone else, but if she did, she could stay married to the new husband. What's the chiddush? Even though they live in the same courtyard, so then the Gemara says, but hainuhach, it's the same case as the case of Kiddush, as the first case where two said we saw her got married and two said we didn't see her get married, and they live in the same courtyard. So then why is there a difference between getting married, in which case we say that we assume she's married to the first person and she can't get married to a second person, and the case of divorce where she shouldn't get married, but if she did, she's allowed to stay married to the second person. So the Gemara says, "Ma'od the same agabi kiddushin hu da'avdi inish the mikachi b'tzina." I might think that, okay, I'll grant you that some people get married secretly. I think I saw someone saying the case is, because maybe either it's a case where maybe she's one of the two, whether the husband they're married someone that it's a big surprise that they'd marry each other. So therefore they want to keep it secret. One of the families is upset about it. So they want to keep it quiet, something like that. But
They recall it was well-known case here. A young guy who Irish age went to the academy and then joined the army. He got married. Nobody knew. He got married before he went off, shipped off to Iraq. He got killed in Iraq.
Oh, right.
A Jewish guy here.
Yeah.
Buried.
Yeah.
Memorial.
Yeah. But was there a rabbi who said that they didn't
know until he was dead.
Uh-huh.
He got all the benefits.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, I don't know why. Was there a problem? I mean, if they would have known, would they have been upset that they got married? I mean, I'm saying, let's say, it would be a case like a Cinderella type thing. A big miyuchas family is marrying some, nobody, so it's improper. So they keep it quiet because otherwise, that's the case that I'm thinking of. But I mean, but for whatever reason, they want to keep it quiet. But I might think that, okay, Mela, you have to keep the wedding quiet. That's one thing, but a divorce you can't keep quiet. So the chiddush is, the Rav Ashi is saying that the chiddush of this brisa is that some people could also get divorced in secret, and therefore, and two witnesses say we saw that they got divorced, and two said we didn't, and they live in the same chatzer, so we could say that they even are cases where you get divorced quietly, and therefore it's possible that she's divorced. So if she got remarried, we wouldn't let her get remarried, but if she did, we let her stay married to the second husband. Okay, so back in the Mishnah said, okay, so Rashi just says, what would be the problem of getting divorced privately and quietly? So it might be a real divorce, but Rashi says still, lechatchila, they shouldn't get married because of the flapping lips that we saw last week. If people get divorced without all quiet and no one knows about it, and suddenly they get remarrying, they're remarrying, people are going to say she's getting remarried without a get. The kids are going to be mamzerim. It's a terrible thing. So that's why. So according to Rashi, it's clearly a derabanan thing that they can't get married.
Now people have divorce parties.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Okay, so the Mishnah says if a woman said I was married but I'm now divorced, she's believed because since she's the mouth that permits her to do something is also allowed to that forbids her also allows her. And if there's witnesses that she was married and she says divorced, she's not believed. The second case, she says I was held captive or kidnapped, but I was not. I'm still tahora, and so I'm still allowed to marry a Kohen. She's believed because again the sha'aser is the pesha heater. And if there's witnesses that she became captive and she says that I was not touched by them, she's not believed. So then the Mishnah said at the end, "Ve'imi shani says bo edem harezu lo teitze." But if after she got married, witnesses came, she doesn't have to leave the new husband. Or in the first case, it would be the second husband. In the second case of the Mishnah, where she was held captive, she was an unmarried person, and now her first wedding is to a Kohen. But if she had been, well, in this week's parsha, Amor, Isha zona b'chalalo lo yikachu, v'isha grusha me'isha lo yikachu. A Kohen is not allowed to marry a woman who is divorced or a zona. Now, zona that in people usually translate it as a prostitute, but in this case, it doesn't all mean prostitute. The Rambam says, I think it's in Pirkei Beis. I mean, lamdu shazona shamor batorhi shenivala le mishu sha'asura lo isra shava b'kol. Someone who had a relationship with someone who was a forbidden relationship, but it's something that the halacha would be the same to any person. So, for example, no Jewish person is allowed to marry a non-Jewish person. So, if she had a relationship with a sexual relation with a non-Jewish person, she gets a status of zona. There's a halachic status of zona, and someone with the halachic status of zona isn't allowed to marry a Kohen, even though she's not divorced, but she has the halachic status of zona. I mean, I know a Kohen, and I know a lot of Kohanim, but a Kohen who, because of whatever stuff, he's not willing to go out on dates with people who became from in college or later as Baal Tshuva, because anyway, you're going to ask, did you ever have a sexual relationship with a non-Jew? If it gets, so because of that, he and there's good reason for him to have that approach. Do you have a question? So in that case, she was unmarried and she had never been married before, but she says that she had been a captive, and now she marries a Kohen. So the fact that she was held captive, if the non-Jews would have, then she would have become a zona, and she can't marry a Kohen. So is this case talking about if she got married, does she have to leave? Is that going on the first case of the Mishnah, or the second case of the Mishnah, or both cases? That's the question of the Gemara. Yeah, John.
So she is a widow.
Yeah.
That's relationship with somebody after.
Okay, so if she was a widow, she's allowed to marry a Kohen. If she was a widow and then had a relationship with a non-Jewish man, then even though she's not a divorced woman, but she has a status of zona from having the relationship with the non-Jewish man, so she wouldn't be allowed to marry a Kohen.
Was the relationship with the Jewish family?
If it was a Jewish man who she could have married, if they would have decided to get married, it would have been permitted to get married, then she's not a zona. No. So she could get married. But let's say it was a mamzer, a kosher Jew is not allowed to marry a mamzer, so then she would have, the marriage wouldn't be, but if it was without kedushin, it wouldn't make her a zona. In any of cases, someone who was a widow then got remarried and then they got divorced. So now she's both an almana and a grusha, so she can't marry a Kohen either. So Rav Oshia Masnila Aresha, Rav Oshia said that this clause in the Mishnah is going on the first case. In the case where she had said that I'm married but now I'm divorced, if she got and then in a case where so then it would be the second half of the first case. If there's witnesses that she was married and she says, oh no, so it's the first case. She says I was married, but now I'm divorced. She's permitted to get married because pesha so pesha hiter. But then im yesh edim, but then if witnesses come that she was married, then she wouldn't be believed. So the question is, when exactly did they come? That's actually the next two dots in the Gemara. So they're saying if witnesses came after she had said that I'm divorced and we believe her, but then witnesses come she doesn't have to leave the second husband. Rabbi bar Avin masnila aseifa, and Rabbi bar Avin said it on the second case, that where she said I was held captive, but they never touched me, and now she's married to a Kohen. Then if witnesses say, we know that two witnesses came and said, we saw that she was taken captive, so she's allowed to remain married to her husband. The one who allows her to stay remarried for the first case, if she was divorced, they certainly agree that she'd be allowed to remain remarried to her in the second case, if she said that she had been captive and was married to a Kohen. Because Chachamim were more lenient in the case of a captive woman. Uman Damasi La Seifa, and according to Ravin, who said that that when witnesses come, she could stay married to the husband. That's only in the case of the second case where she said I was captive, but they didn't touch me. And then witnesses gave, yeah, we know she was captive, so we wouldn't believe her against the witnesses. But we had already passed in based on what she said. So now that the witnesses come, we don't want to let her get married. But if she got married, she can stay married to Mr. Cohen. She married Aaron. Avola Reisha lo. But they would say, because obviously the case of Shvuya is not as strict as an Eishes Ish, but if it would have been if she would have said I had been married but I'm divorced, and then witnesses came and said no, we know that she had been married and we don't know if she's divorced or not, so then we would not let her get married, and if she remarried, we would force her to leave the second husband because we have enough as a suspicion that she's still married to the first husband, so she wasn't single and available to get remarried. The lame of the Rav Hamnuna kamiflagi. Why don't we say that they're arguing about Rav Hamnuna? The man demasila reisha isla Rav Hamnuna, man demasila seifa leisa Rav Hamnuna. So we saw Rav Hamnuna last week. Rav Hamnuna said last week was that a woman wouldn't be so chutzpahdik to say that she's divorced if she's really not divorced. She wouldn't have that much chutzpah to her husband. Now, that it seems that that's the type of thing that wouldn't apply nowadays, because that would apply in societies at times where the men were in full control of everything, and the wife wouldn't do anything unless the husband let them say it. So in this day and age, that doesn't seem to be a principle that would hold. A similar thing would be, according to halacha, women aren't allowed to lean on the Pesach night in front of their husbands. That they can't act like royalty and stuff when they have responsibilities towards their husband. And there's a famous Rabbi, but Nashim, our wives are Kesuvos, they're important, so they're allowed to recline in front of their husbands. So it seems to be a kind of similar thing, not the same, but a similar thing. So Rav Hamnuna says if she was really divorced, if she wasn't divorced, she wouldn't have the chutzpah to say she's divorced. The fact that she says she's divorced is enough of I guess, due to social customs or whatever. She wouldn't say she's divorced unless it's really true. That's what we saw Rav Hamnuna say last week. So let's say that Rav Oshia holds like Rav Hamnuna. So if she says she's divorced, that's a really strong reason. The fact that she's saying she's divorced adds credibility to herself for us to believe she's really divorced. And the second opinion, who said it only goes on the case of Shvuya, they hold that they reject Rav Oshia. Excuse me, they reject Rav Hamnuna, and they say a woman wouldn't say divorced unless she's really divorced. She might say divorced. She might say I'm divorced even if she's not really divorced. She would have enough chutzpah to say that. So the Gemara says no. Lo dekuli alma isluhu Rav Hamnuna. No, everyone holds that Rav Hamnuna's statement is correct. That a woman wouldn't have the chutzpah to say she's divorced unless she's really divorced. But Rav But they're arguing is does Rav Hamnuna say his din only when she's in front of the husband, or even when she's not in front of the husband? According to the opinion that it goes even to the Reisha, she's so socially scared or whatever, even if her husband's not there, she would, and in this case is a case where her husband's not there because she comes to Beis Din alone in a different city. No one knows her there really. So she would, even though the husband's not there, she was still worried enough that she wouldn't have the chutzpah. The fact that she says it must be because it's true. And the other opinion holds she would only when we could use her statement of saying I'm divorced shows that she must really be divorced. That's only true if the husband was there. But if the husband's not there, she wouldn't be so socially bound by fear or awe or whatever, reverence or whatever of her husband, that she wouldn't say that. So it's possible if her husband's not there that she would say that she'd been divorced, even though it's not true. But everyone holds Rav Hamnuna. They only argue if Rav Hamnuna said his statement blanket, even if she's not in front of the husband, or he only said it when she is in the husband, in front of the husband, or possibly in the same town. She knows that he would hear it. She wouldn't say something if it would get back to him. Yeah. The imi shenises bo Adam. So if she was captive, she said I was captive, but I wasn't touched. She can, if she can get married to a Kohen. But if a Kohen came, but if witnesses came and said yes, she really was a captive, and we don't know what her status was, she does not have to leave her husband. Amar avur d'shmuel lo nises mamish. The father of Shmuel said, when it says that if she got married, it doesn't mean literally she already has to be married and then witnesses come, then we let her stay married. But let's say the Beis Din paskin and then witnesses came, do they retract their heter? Avud Shmuel says, once the Beis Din gave her a heter to get married, even though she didn't get married yet, and then witnesses come and said, we know that she had been held captive, we still believe her enough in the face of two witnesses, and if she would get married, we would not make her leave her new Kohen husband. So the Gemara says, "V'halo teitek tani," but it says if she got married, she doesn't leave. That sounds like she was already married. So the Gemara says, "Lo teite mehetera rishon." She doesn't have to leave from her original heter, but not from. She doesn't have to leave. So lo teite makes it sound like if she already got married, she doesn't have to leave. But what Shmuel means, once she had a heter to get married, she could keep that heter even though witnesses later came, and the Beis Din wouldn't have given that heter if the witnesses would have come earlier. Tanar Bana, we learned in the Brisa. Nishbesi Torani v'yeshli edim shotorani. If she says I was held captive and I'm Torah and I have kosher witnesses to testify on my behalf, but they're not here right now, but it's so and so and so and so who live in so and so place. Ein omrim nantin ashivo edim elamatir no somiyat. We don't say we have to wait till the witnesses come, but we allow her to get married immediately. He truly not say v'achakach bo edim v'amr lo yadanu. And then if witnesses come and they say, the witnesses who she said can testify on her behalf, and they say, we don't know her status. Lo teitze. Harezu lo teitze. She doesn't have to leave her husband. The imbo ate a tuma, but if witnesses came and say, we know that she was secluded with a non-Jewish man, so we have to assume that they don't know for sure, but Rashi says that we know that she was secluded with the non-Jews. Even if she had been married to her new Kohen husband for several years already and has a few kids, we force her to leave, even though it looks bad that the kids might be mamzerim, whether they're safek or not. We have to look in the Rishonim. Then she would have to leave. So the difference between that Brisa doesn't argue on our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is talking about just when witnesses come and say we know that she was held captive, but they don't know that she was ever secluded with one of the non-Jewish captors. Here, Eidei Tuma means we have witnesses who know that she was captive and she was had seclusion, had yichud with the non-Jewish captors. There were some captives that came to Narda. Rashi says they were brought to Narda because the captors knew that Jews would pay ransom to ransom Jews away, even if they didn't necessarily know who they were. So the father of Shmuel put watchmen who could be able to testify that they were not secluded with the non-Jewish captors. Amarle Shmuel. So Shmuel, his son, said, but until now, who guarded them? So what good is it helping to make Shomer now? Amarle ilu benesa havin mi havis mezalzabahu kulihai. If they were your daughters, would you be that, unconcerned about them? If they're your daughters, from this point on, you wouldn't want anything to happen to them, so you would put watchmen. I havoi havoi kishigaga shayotze milifnei hashalit. So this was like there's pasuk in Koheles, an accident or an inadvertent thing that went from the ruler's mouth. So basically, sometimes we have a thing. It's the opposite from your mouth to God's ears. We say that for a good thing. This is they said something bad and then it came true. So I'm not sure if it's talking about Kishgaga Shiot Mipnei Hashalit from Shmuel. Is it because Shmuel says, up until now, what would it have been? So then he had a similar case happen to him. We're going to see that his daughters were taken captive. Or is because Shmuel's father, to me, this seems more likely, since Shmuel's father, we just know from the previous Gemara, was an important Amora, was an Amora also, because he says if it was your daughters, so he shouldn't have said if it was your daughters, because the fact that he said it, it then came true. Now, I think the article in the footnote mentions that certain people, they say something, it's a little bit like Nevuah. Now, it doesn't make sense because there was certainly no Nevuah by the time of Shmuel anymore. To me, it would make more sense to say, because there's a Gemara in Makos, that certain types of oaths or klalos or curses, even inadvertently, they would come true. So like when Reuven said, if I don't bring Binyamin back, Yehuda said to Yaakov, if I don't bring Binyamin back, I will sin to you all my days. Meaning he was giving him a curse that he couldn't enter Olam Haba if he didn't bring Binyamin back. And even though he did save Binyamin, but because he said it, it had to come true anyway. So to me, it would seem to more the fact that Avua de Shmuel said, if it was your daughters, that was kind of, even though he didn't mean it as a curse, but it ended up that it came out like that. And then the Ishtabian Benase de Mar Shmuel, and the daughters of Mar Shmuel became captive. Now, I don't know why the Gemara adds the title Mar in front of Shmuel here, and before it was just Shmuel. Vasiknu la'ara de Yisrael, and the captors took them to Eretz Yisrael, because they were from Bava. So they were able, their captors let them alone for a few minutes, and they went to a base medrash to Rabbi Chanina. So one daughter said, I was held captive, but I was not secluded with the non-Jew. And the other sister also said, I was held captive, but I was not secluded with the non-Jew. Sharinhu. And so Reb Chanina Paskin, they were allowed to marry a Kohen. All asu shavnuyu, and then the captors came in. So then we know that they were captives. Meaning, when does our Mishnah say the only way we know they're captives is because they tell us? But there's no other evidence, no other adim that they're captives. But then when their captors come in and we see that they're the captors, but there's no, that's more than adim. We see with our own eyes that they are in the status of captivity. We don't know, we don't need witnesses to tell us. So Amar Rab Chanina Benan Demorian Inun. It's clear that you are the children of a great posek in order to run to the base medrash and tell us this before we ever saw the captors in town. Because if we would have seen them in town first, we couldn't believe you and give you the heter to get married. Iglai Milsa de Mar Shmuel Havin. Then it came out that they were the daughters of the master Shmuel. Amarle Rab Chanina Rav Shemin Bar Abba. Rab Chanina said to Rav Shemin Bar Abba, who was a Kohen, Hook itfo v'krobosach. Go get busy with a deal with your relatives. So from here it sounds, and I tried looking up, but I didn't have the right book. Basically saying you should marry one of these people. So even though they were captives, Reb Chanina was 100% sure that the psak was that she was allowed to marry a Kohen. So he told his colleague or student to marry one of them. So the fact that it says Bikrovosayach, I don't know if it means, so Rashi says marry one of them because they're relatives. So I don't know if Rav Shemin Bar Abba was somehow related to Shmuel, or Shmuel was also a Kohen. So if you're a Kohen and they're a Kohen, you must be related somehow. But it seems from Rashi, doesn't say how, and I don't know the family trees right now, but it sounds like they were related. Amar le Rab Chanina va'ika eid medinas hayam. So Rav Shemen said to Rab Chanina, but there's witnesses overseas that they were held captive. Now, I don't know why he didn't seem to be bothered by the fact that we saw the captors themselves here. So he said, so Reb Chanina answered, Hashtamias, lesno taman. But we don't have any witnesses now, and Adam side Esan v'teyaser. And just because there's witnesses on the northern side, we're going to say they're usher? No, we're not worried in this case that witnesses are going to come. So this makes it sound like, and Rashi says that if witnesses would come before she get married, then she wouldn't be allowed to get married. So the Gemara says, so this sounds like if witnesses would come before she get married, then she wouldn't be allowed to marry a Kohen. But Avodah Shmuel says once she had a heter to get married, they're allowed to marry a Kohen. But this statement that Rav Chanina said makes it sound like if Adam would have come before she actually got married, she wouldn't be allowed to get married. But according to Avodah Shmuel, once the Basin gave a heter, the heter wouldn't be revoked. So Rav Ashi ate a tuma itmar. So Rav Ashi says, no, this isn't. He didn't mean here witnesses that they were held captive. If witnesses that they were actually secluded with the non-Jewish husband. So if they would come, that could be a problem before the wedding. But just witnesses who would say that they were held captive is not a problem. So let's turn to Chaf Gimel Lamed Beis. We'll read the Mishnah, then they're going to have to end. Oh no, I have to leave anyway. Shtei nashim shenishbu. There's two women that were held captive. There's also meres nishbesi utarani. There's also meres nishbesi utarani. Eino nemanos. This one says, I was held captive, but I am pure. I mean, I wasn't secluded with the non-Jew. There's also meres nishbesi utarani. Eino nemanos. They're not believed. So Rashi says this is a case where there are witnesses that they were held captive. So this clause of the Mishnah is no chiddush, but here's the clause of the Mishnah. But if they testify for each other, then they're believed. So she says, we were both held captive. I wasn't secluded and she wasn't secluded either. And the other one says, I was held captive and I wasn't secluded with the non-Jew, and neither was this other one who was with me. So then their witness, even though they're women, in the case of shvuya, of a captive woman, the chachamim were lenient to accept their testimony, and so there's two witnesses who say we know that they were held captive, but each woman has her fellow captive with her, and both of them testify about themselves and the other that they were not secluded with the non-Jew. So we allow them to get married, and we to a Kohen, and we don't believe the witnesses who say we know that they were captives, or we might believe that they were captives, but we have the other witnesses who are telling us more details than that and saying that they were not held, that they weren't secluded with the non-Jews. So I have to leave it here. Chaf Gimel Lamed Beis, and near the top.